Hello everyone, my name is Lou and this is my gaming channel. Today I'm gonna showcase you one of my recent build which I called Caretaker 2.0. Yes, this is the second version of the very first Caretaker build of mine, but it's a lot different than that, so thumbs up. let's dive into the build. This build utilizes focus actually. Yeah, you might surprise, but if you follow me, you realize that I said I'm gonna give off about Ring of Determination and Battle Cry Ring. No, no, no. Now, from now on, we're gonna use focus only. So that's why I came up with focus build on caretakers, because this concept is the one of my favorite mage concept in the game. So as you also can understand from the gem, we utilize low health as well. Yes, it sounds weird, but we do. So let's start with the weapon. We use reliable facet and we use power increase at low health gem, 50% at low health gem, which is Black Pearl. And as enchantments, we use rune damage, gain focus on fatality, gain health on staggering enemies, and movement speed after dealing damage with rune attack. It's pretty much the same for the second weapon. Only difference is we use health on charge attack. Other than that, everything is same. So let's start the caretakers rune attacks and why we use those runes. So we use Plague Breath for first rune to trigger some buffs, let's say. I'm gonna explain. But first of all, the main reason why we use Plague Breath is to apply Plague. Because if you know the enchantment, execute infected low health enemies on damage deal. This is important because you can only execute your enemies if the enemy already infected, like the plague build up already full, then you can execute. You know what I mean? And also with Plague Breath, we can trigger focus cost reduced after damage dealt by rune attack enchantment, which is actually a lifesaver for this build. So our main combo is for normal mobs or bigger mobs, bigger enemies, is to hit stamina rune and then spam Plague Smite, which is our second most used rune attack on Caretaker, Plague Smite. It gives us AoE damage, it gives us single target damage, both with pretty good numbers actually. It's not one shot every time on every mobs, but most of the time Plague Smite already one shots most of the mobs. And our third most used rune is Plague Burst, which is our projectile mage rune, let's say. You might think as a rain arrow or something like that, which is, let me show you, this one. We use this one for the bigger mobs and the mobs that pretty far away. That's pretty much the only reason why we use, especially boss fights. If the bosses are too far away from us, we definitely use Plague Burst. Both increase their both dealing poise damage and increasing their plague build up, plague infusion, let's say. And the last one is, let me have some focus first. Let's give off health. The last rune is, of course, Pestilence, which is my favorite rune in the game. This one. We use Pestilence rune pretty rarely. Most of the time we use it if there are like 3 or more enemies, maybe 4 or 5 enemies around. If we have enough focus, which most of the time we will have, which I'm gonna explain later, we use Pestilence. Or on boss fights, for example, we have enough focus and boss have like maybe 1 of the 4 health, you know what I mean, like 25% health, then we consider to use Pestilence to execute the boss. Yes, we can also execute bosses with this enchantment. So the Pestilence rune is pretty much for these circumstances because of its huge damage output. But we only use Pestilence if we have enough focus. Alright, you might ask like, then how are we gonna have enough focus for Pestilence? Because it's 150. Alright, we deal stamina rune attack and it reduced 83 or 85, whatever. My astigmat is so bad. But it's still not enough. So here comes the juicy part. It's Hope Shore. So if we want to use Pestilence, we need to prepare for it. We need to have some preparation before we land Pestilence, which is our heavy attacks. Yes, enemy staggered, and we swap back to our weapon, and now we can use Pestilence for how many was that? I couldn't catch it. Let me read it again. Ooh. 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 52. Yeah, 52. So after we trigger all of our focus cost reduction buffs, we can trigger Pestilence for 52 focuses. Yeah, that's the main combo about this build. I'm gonna explain Hope Shore's rune attacks now, which we don't utilize every of them, not at all. We mostly utilize a couple of them. For example, this one. Oh, all right, wait, sorry. For example, this one. Okay, give me some focus. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Because it deals huge damage and it staggers every mob other than bosses with one cast. So that's why we use this one, which it called what was name? Berserk Flurry. This is most used rune in the Hope Shore in this build. So the second one is, let me have some focus again. This one. This one is basically for finishers or for big mobs. You know what I mean? Rip and tear. It's the natural rune of the weapon. It comes with the weapon. And we have Wall Breaker either, which I barely use, but it's good to break enemies' shield or close gaps. You know, yeah, if you prefer. And as the last one, we use Pestilence Recoil. Pestilent Recoil, okay. So let me showcase that as well. This one. Boom, boom, like Echo Knight, if you remember. Echo Knight 5. It looks pretty similar, one of its movesets. So you might think when we use Pestilent Recoil anyway, so we actually use Pestilent Recoil for really specific circumstances, for situations, let's say. For example, we're fighting with Echo Knight and it got staggered and it recovered from it, let's say. Okay, it's staggered and it recovered. We start Pestilence Recoil to put gap between the boss, and then we swap back to our wand or staff, I mean, and we can like deal other rune attacks on the staff. This perfect situation is so good for the rune, Pestilent Recoil rune. Other than that, we don't use that much, you know, like it's up to you. Most of the time we use Berserk Flurry on Hope Shore. It's a must, but others are optional. So let me explain the enchantments on the gear pieces right now, the armor pieces I mean. So on our helm, we use Agile Facet to increase our stamina regen, and as enchantment we use Armor Penetration. plague damage, and focus cost reduction after rune attack damage. Yeah, these are important, extremely important. Since we use reliable, it nullifies its like 0R crit chance, so we don't use any crit chance or crit damage in this build. We use raw total beefy damage, not like some woozy doozy stuff to increase our damage. No, only armor pan and plug damage and rune damage increase our damage. Other than that, we don't increase our damage with anything else. So as a gem, of course, we use Black Pearl on every piece of items in the build. And on our chest armor, we use Agile again as a facet, and as enchantments, it's enemy stagger resistance reduced if the enemy infected, which is so important because of Hobshorn's base poise damage already so much with the charge attacks. We increase it with this facet even further. That's why this enchantment is important. Actually, in bosses, it's even more important. And also we use plague damage again and focus cost reduction after staggering enemies. It's also, I showed why we use this one. And we use health generation in combat. And as a downside, we use max focus reduce, which I'm gonna explain at the end of the armor pieces part. So on glow, we use rapid, of course, because if you know me, you know me, I love attack speed and movement speed. And as an enchantment, we use execution if the enemy infected. And execution works, as I remember, like 20% or 25%. I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me on the comments. But as I remember, the enemy got executed if its health, total health, decreased. Current health decreased to 20% or something like that. And we use infection build-up as second enchantment, which is too important for this build because you can only increase your build-up, any of the build-ups, doesn't matter which element. You can only increase your build-up with two ways. Either you're gonna have to increase your base and elemental damage, overall damage, or you have to increase your build-up, like with enchantment. And with enchantment is the most beneficial and advanced way to increase your build-up, other than increasing your raw damage. Because with infection build-up or X elemental build-up enchantment, you can inflict infection with one shot, for example. In this build, we inflict plague with one plague breath to normal enemies. Like even most of the time, even bigger enemies, like not the bosses but the bigger ones, we can land infection build up 100% with one shot of plague breath, which is the lowest rune damage in the game actually. But thanks to infection build up enchantment, and I was kind of lucky to get exalt on it, we can land infection 100% with one shot of plague breath. And as third enchantment, we use healing increase current durability. It's not so necessarily to hit exalts on it, but that enchantment is required in order to be able to life steal even more from plague. Because if you don't know, if after you land plague infusion 100% on your opponent, you actually can life steal from it. And since we also use health on charge attack on our Hobshorn, when you combine that 5% health back and life steal from plague, it heals pretty good. So that's why we use healing increase enchantment. And as a last one, I use stamina on staggering enemy. You can prefer whatever you want because it's not that important. But the reason why I choose stamina on staggering enemy specifically for bosses. For example, I hit my charge attacks and after I stagger my enemy, my bar is get full. Watch my stamina bar. You see? Basically, I have endless stamina. It's even same for normal mobs. So that's why I preferred stamina on staggering enemy. And as a downside, we use max focus reduce again, which I'm gonna explain right after my pants. So on my pant, I use frantic with armor pen, plague damage, and stamina recovery increase. Because frantic and rapid facets gives us stamina regen reduction as a downside. So we actually nullify and even get above from the downsides. Like we hit even further stamina recovery with this enchantment. Basically, we increase our stamina recovery 5%. Yeah. So the reason why I use max focus reduction, because we use Scarlet Ring in this build. Why? The reason why is gonna make sense a lot. Be careful, it's coming. So this ring allows us to swap our max health and max focus, which means after we equip this ring, when we put some points on focus, it's gonna increase our health. And every max focus increase buff also will increase our health. And also every max focus reduce downsides decreases our health. So both 18 reduction gives us nearly, let me calculate it again, 27, like 54-ish health regen, max health regen it gives. Correct me if I miscalculated, I'm very suck at math anyway. But when we equip Band of Calmness as well, it's gonna increase our max health even further, like 50%, and plus it's gonna give us focus gain increase, which we needed actually because we still use focus. As I told you, we give off the battle cry and ring of determination rings, so we need focus generation, focus gain or whatever. So that's why we use Scarlet and Band of Calmness combination. As a last one, of course, we use Rune Ring to increase our rune damage even further. And I was really lucky with this 4x exalt on my main weapon. And I was kind of unlucky because I used health on staggering on enemy, but it would make even more sense if you use health on fatality on your weapon. But like I said, I already have my healing back from Hopshorn instead of Caretaker stuff. But if you have health on fatality, you could have even easy health regen, health gain back, you know what I mean. And as a stat points, we use 50 faith point, 50 points on faith and 51 points on focus. So you can play around those numbers according to your gameplay preferences, etc, etc. And yes, this is pretty much the whole build and all the details and gameplay tricks, tips and tricks about the build. Excuse my sloppiness, excuse my language, I'm kind of tired, that's why I'm stuttering that much, etc, etc. But yeah, this was the whole build. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to thumbs up. See you on the next build, guys. Take care. Bye bye.